Welcome to today's show, and on today's video, I wanted to have a little bit of fun. With spring training almost about set to get underway throughout Florida and Arizona, I wanted to have a little bit of fun today, breaking down the broadcasters of the American League East, the five AL East clubs. I'll offer up my analysis, my commentary, and we'll use the latest rankings from a website that covers media news called Awful Announcing. We'll listen, we'll kind of follow along with what their rankings were when they put together a list of all 30 teams. This was back over the summer. So that'll help kind of guide us as we talk about these teams and their broadcast booths. So we'll start with the New York Yankees, who were ranked 22nd by Awful Announcing in the broadcast booths. Okay. So the Yankees are on the S Network. Obviously, we all are pretty familiar with Michael Kay, and he does have a rotating group of analysts who help him out. It was ranked 22nd. Personally, I feel that that's a little low. This is a good broadcast. I'm not saying it's the best broadcast, but I do believe that it has a couple positives. Number one, I think, is that Michael Kay has developed pretty nicely over the years. I know a lot of people will say that he's boring or that he's a homer, but to me, I think he does a good job of sort of incorporating his passion for baseball, which is clear, and the fact that he loves his team, and I think he does a very good job of working with, as we mentioned there, he's got five analysts who are working with him at any given point during the season, which is hard if you're a play-by-play commentator to meld with them. And I think he does the best job with David Cone. David Cone, to me, is what makes the broadcast really good. He's an entertaining guy, but I think the best part about Cone, he played the game, and he incorporates the old school and the new school. He does a very good job with that, and that comes through when he talks about analytics. Paul O'Neill is also perfect. He was a former player, a real fiery competitor, loves the Yankees, and I think is kind of that everyman guy. He's just somebody who anybody can relate to when they watch the game. So, to me, I think this ranking is a little low. It's a good broadcast. They've certainly had the, blessing of rooting and watching for very good teams here. The Yankees have not had a losing season since 1982. So this is a good booth. I think the ranking is a little low. Again, I feel it's a good team, good tandem, and they could do a lot better in those rankings. The Toronto Blue Jays, who have Dan Schulman as the primary play-by-play announcer. You have Buck Martinez, Joe Siddall, and Ben Schulman kind of filling in here. They were ranked number 6. I think that's a very fair ranking for this group. It's a very good, pairing with Schulman and Martinez. Pat Tabler, who used to be on this team, he was also pretty good. And I think Joe Siddall now, because Buck Martinez isn't doing every single game. His schedule is down to, I think, 110 games, call it. So I think with Joe Siddall now, he kind of taking on that role of David Cone, which again is a very good role where you kind of incorporate the new school and the old school. Siddall definitely has a lot of experience now. He's been working in the studio, pre and post game, doing that. So he's comfortable with that. I mentioned that Martinez has a polarizing voice. It seems like among Blue Jay fans, you either like the voice or you don't like the voice. There's not a lot of middle ground there. So I find that to be pretty interesting, but it's a good booth. Again, this I think is a good ranking for them, and we'll see how the others go. The Red Sox are on NESN. They're ranked number 15, which to me I think is a very fair ranking. It's kind of hard to rank this team, right? They've had a lot of change in the broadcast booth between Jerry Remy, unfortunately passing away, and Dennis Eckersley retiring. There's been a lot of fluidity in this booth. You had Tony Maserati there for a little while. Now you seem to have guys like Kevin Youkilis, Will Middlebrooks. They've been kind of coming in and out. I think the one that I like the most, I know Brian is a very straight shooter. People like his, very honest delivery. Some people may not like his voice though. He kind of has a little bit of a monotone voice, but he's certainly a straight shooter, does a good job, prepares well. And I think they're going to work in Lou Merloni a little bit, and I agree completely. I think he's very good. He does a good job of balancing the humor and the seriousness that you need on a broadcast like the Red Sox. So to me, it's kind of hard to rank this group because, again, there's been so much change, and I think it's a very fair ranking right in the middle, kind of neutral. We still need to see a little bit more as it pertains to the Red Sox. The Orioles, Kevin Brown is the primary analyst. Jim Palmer and Ben McDonald, both former pitchers on the Orioles, are the rotating analysts. This is a fourth-ranked booth. I think that's pretty high, but I think they do a good job. Kevin Brown is good, absolutely. Gary Thorne, I think, may have been a touch better. Again, Gary Thorne was a veteran of the sports broadcasting industry. I think Palmer and McDonald are fantastic. Again, they do such a good job of making the entertainment aspect of the broadcast. McDonald is, he's got a great sense of humor to him. He's got a great personality. And I think him and Jim Palmer is one of those guys who has a dry sense of humor. I mention that because I remember a couple of years ago, the Orioles suspended Kevin Brown because he was seen on the air talking about the Orioles' losing record against the Tampa Bay Rays. And he served this couple game suspension, was back on the air. And then Jim Palmer, during the middle of an introduction, literally joked about the fact that he had been suspended. And who does that, right? But leave it to Jim Palmer to do that. So he's been great. I could see him really doing well in almost any booth, but he does a great job here with the Orioles. And McDonald is definitely getting a national profile now. We saw him on the 2024 MLB Wildcard Series that was broadcast on ESPN. So that was a lot of fun to listen to. And then rounding it out here is the Tampa Bay Rays, who are on Bally Sports. I guess now with the broadcast kind of being in flux there at Diamond Sports, it's going to change over. This was based off of last year. And they were ranked 17th, which I think is also a pretty fair ranking for this team. Dwayne Staats, of course, has been doing it forever, since literally the beginning of Tampa Bay Rays baseball. And he does a good job. To me, I think Staats has been scaling back his schedule, so we're going to see a little bit more of Andy Freed, who was on the radio side. He's going to be stepping in now a little bit more for Dwayne Staats. Brian Anderson, who's the primary guy with Dwayne Staats, again, a very funny guy, everyman. He can really meld very well with almost anybody, and you're seeing that, So what I mentioned, I think was pretty funny. Brian Anderson and Dwayne Staats, they kind of have different personalities. They both love baseball. They're both very passionate about it, and they do a really good job of working together. So I think it's a very fair ranking at number 17. And a couple of takeaways here. Again, I think American League East fans are very lucky to have, this wide and eclectic, unique group of commentators. And to me, I think the one that's in the best shape right now in terms of its present and future is the Yankees. With the Rays, I mentioned Dwayne Staats is scaling back his schedule. I don't know if he's going to be doing this for another 10, 15 years, even with the Blue Jays, right? I don't know how many more years Buck Martinez is doing it, Jim Palmer for that matter. Again, these are guys who are older and have been doing it for so long. I'm curious to see, in 10 years whether they'll still be in these positions. They very much could be, but to me the Yankees have, a couple of these young guys. Even with the Red Sox, they're pretty stable too, right? Well, they're not stable in the sense that they're still trying to figure out who the analysts are, but they're going to pick from one of these guys, and then they'll be there for 10, 20, 30 years maybe. The Rays, of course, have been caught up in the Diamond Sports Group bankruptcy fiasco, so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Again, does MLB take on those broadcasts? Do they not? And I think what's been interesting about this is, and fans would have to answer this, do you listen to these broadcasts? Do you really enjoy it? Do you like these broadcasters? I'm sure some of them you definitely do. You've been growing up around them for so long that you do kind of get used to it. They become kind of the soundtrack of summer. And to me, I think it's interesting. All these teams have experienced, the Yankees have experienced almost virtual success the whole time. And I feel that that's interesting because maybe the broadcast, it's easier to kind of do those games. Or is it easier to broadcast a team that is good versus a team that's bad? The Rays have had a couple of bad years, maybe. No, not the Rays, the Red Sox. And is it harder or easier to broadcast? That to me is interesting. So, yeah, leave a couple of comments about what you guys think about this. I know I personally enjoy the broadcast a lot, and it makes sense that I think people would kind of view it based on the way the team is performing. So, just a little bit of fun here. For our next video, we'll talk a little bit more about these AL East teams. And until we do, this has been another video here on the American League East Recap.